Guys and girls, when it comes to property, how long do you stay in that property for? We're going to talk about Sydney's averages and the hold period in Sydney for a unit and for a house. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Mr. Billy Drury, real old man stuck on a young man's body. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I've got a quick summary for this segment we're talking about this morning. The property ladder, it's not a ladder, it's a life cycle. We're going to unpack it for you this morning.
It's a life cycle. So I guess what we're just keen about is this is knowledge that a typical real estate agent probably takes for granted, sits on, and a buyer thinks, oh my God, I wonder how long I should be in my unit for on average. What do people stay in these units for? How long should I stay in my house for? What's the average for people in houses? So we've actually got the statistical data across the state of New South Wales and across every suburb in Sydney, where we're going to be a bit selfish. We're going to stick to Northern Beaches majority today, but it's a good benchmark for the whole of Sydney.
Yeah, and in the comments section, if you want us to cover your suburb whilst we're live on air, then put it in the comments and we will. But I think there's great value in knowing what the averages are, and then there's also value in asking the agent, how do I be a success story of this? How do I make a success of a purchase? Because the hold period is actually so much more important than you think, particularly if it's your principal place of residence. It's capital gains free, tax free. It's one of the only tax free systems in Australia. So you better get it right.
Now, I guess where it all starts is the first home buyer. And there is definitely a distinction between houses and units you'll have a look at. Believe it or not, it's only about a 2-year or 3-year longer hold period from a unit to a house. Now, I love big unit suburbs because they're big data. So giving you a hold period for a suburb that only has 5 unit blocks is pretty ordinary, but giving you a hold period of how long people stay in that unit for in places where there's 1,000 unit blocks, and it's like, oh my God, that's interesting information. Sydney CBD, Chatswood, DUI, those sort of places. Let's have a look at the hold period of a big suburb like DY. Now, I guess to start from the beginning, you're a first home buyer. You've had some incentives. You may have bought a one or two bedroom unit. You're the age, if you're fortunate, you're what age, Bill? You're probably younger than older.
Yeah, but look, average first home buyer in Sydney is now 37. So I think don't rule yourself out. You can start this journey anywhere.
Average. So what's DY, Billy? What's the average hold period for a DY unit? And this isn't just a guess. This is exact.
Yeah, this is exact. It's actually a lot longer than I thought it was. Before we were talking off air, I didn't realize how quickly it sort of crept away. And your off air comment was, it's so expensive now. That makes sense. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So it's called a hold period. We've got some good data that you can pull up any suburb for if you're interested. So the average hold period for a DY unit's now 11 years. That's over a 10-year rolling average.
So yeah, it's a rolling average. So 10 years, that's interesting. And I guess, units are not going to just be first home buyers. They're probably going to be retirees potentially as well. So it's the beginning of that. I guess in the beginning of your property cycle, you're probably in a unit. Probably by the end of the property cycle, you're in a retirement village unit or a unit. And then in the middle of your cycle, you're probably in a townhouse house, and you may have done 2 of those transactions or 3 of those transactions because you've upgraded your house. So it's 11 years hold period for an average suburb in Sydney. DY would be an average unit suburb in Sydney. Moving across to an average house suburb in Sydney, where are we at now, Bill?
We've got 13 years.
2 extra years. So you're spending probably your 20s and 30s by the sounds of it, or in a unit. Then you're spending your 40s and 50s
Yeah.
in a house. So what was the house again?
The house is 13 years, and it's interesting because
Versus
back,
11.
like I've taken that 10-year rolling average, so it gets me back to September 2016, and it's 9.4 years in 2016. So you might not be able to see that, or you can see that, but you can see it's trending upwards, and there's a bit of turbulence in there, but that's starting from 9.6 and now sitting at 13. That's for houses.
Is that longer than what you thought? Because you actually didn't know these numbers before we started, these RP data numbers. Is that a longer number than what you thought?
No, it's about right for units. Sorry, it's about right for houses, but I thought units would be a bit shorter. I always thought it was close to about 7 years. And I'm seeing a lot of transactions at the moment transacting under that, so under 5 years, and not always for profit, in the current climate. So I think that whole period is really important.
So, and it's expensive, guys and girls. So I guess if you're getting in incentives or no incentives, whatever, if you're getting in, you're probably paying 4% on your stamp duty, just to get in, legal fees, and on the way out, you're probably paying 2% for your agent, legal fees as well. So now we're up to 6, probably 8% to transact that property, and it's 8% not of your cash in there, it's 8% on the whole amount. So it could be double or triple that, depending on what your equity is. Then you're moving into the next asset, the house or the townhouse, and you're paying another 4% there. So it's very, very taxing, the process to get into a property. The shit part about that is pretty obvious. But the good part about that is it actually makes people less transactional. It increases the tenure, because it's so expensive to get out and get in a property in Sydney that people probably are going to hold on to it for longer.
Yeah, but some punchy facts here for you. Australians typically buy 4 to 6 properties through their lifetime. So we're so far, in the jar. We've got the optics over these everyday transactions. It's almost like normal for us, but it does set you into reality when you then speak to a mum and dad who have been in the same home for 30 years, and so they're not used to the selling and buying process.
Wow. So we've covered the beginning of the cycle. We've put people have gone into the next part of their property cycle. So they've actually probably bought a townhouse, a bigger unit, or a townhouse, or a smaller house. They then dispose of that over, on average, 13 years. Then they move into the family, probably the bigger family homes. So they either do a bigger renovation on the house. This is very average. They do a bigger renovation on the house, or they buy something bigger, and then they're there for another, on average, Bill. If we go to French's Forest, for example, like a bigger house, there's bigger houses up there. Are we still sitting around that 13-year mark?
I'm glad you asked, so I can tell you right now. French's Forest, postcode 2086. We might be challenged here. I don't know if we've got enough data. Just loading.
Pretty big. That's a pretty big housing suburb. I think we'll get good stuff out of that.
Bear with. Just whilst this
now,
data's loading.
While you're doing that, yeah.
I say, if you keep your next chapter in mind for your purchase in the current day, that's a good way to be forward planning.
I like that. Yeah. I think, even if you're at the beginning of that cycle, I think there's, if you can forward plan, there's a bit of comfort in that, knowing sort of what that next move may, will, should look like. So this information today is handy.
Okay, I got it. You ready?
If I do say so myself, tell me.
14 years for French's Forest houses. So a little bit longer.
So you're in 13, you're in 14. There goes 27 years of your housing life. You've probably done 11 of your housing life. There's 40.
Yeah.
Now you're 65. Now you're 65 on that cycle. And you're probably going into
Retirement, your golden years.
now. You've got some experience in this, Bill.
not on the retirement side, no, but
You've
I
had
do have.
you've had someone close to you do this recently.
Yeah, my dad just retired about 2 months ago, and I sold for mum and dad, sold the family house and helped them buy their retirement place. They're not in a retirement village, don't worry, they're not that old, but they you know, they had a lot to consider. Yeah.
And it's a lot of emotions. So I guess when it gets to that age, two decisions: retirement village meets over 50 or over 55s,
Yeah.
or something low maintenance, i.e. an apartment in the area where you've been the last 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Go to Queensland.
A lot of that happens. Absolutely.
Bit of that happening in retirement, retire with the sun. But if you look at those 10-year periods, that's probably going to take you for another. And if we go off the unit average, there's 11 years again. So now you're 80.
Yep. And I
Is
think
this
it's
it?
looking at that level as well, looking at your debt level, and your LVR, your loan to value ratio throughout that cycle. It's probably at its most in the early days, and it's probably at its lowest in your golden years.
And you probably haven't realized, but you're killing about 10 to 20% of your debt every decade.
Great way to look at it. Yeah. Or taking on as you've got the income. So I like to call your 20s and 30s your engine room years of your life. That's when you're at work building foundations. They're your engine room years. So grind.
So every decade you're taking on a little bit more debt. Every decade or two you're taking a little bit more debt, but you're still overall retiring 10 or 20% of it. Now, for fortunate people, they'll have super or they'll have savings, a bit of cash. They may buy an investment property in that cycle, probably mid-life 40s, 50s, around there. They'll have an egg they'll save an egg for the future.
Yeah, I love that. And as you said, that covers your decades. You wonder where your time goes. That is it. You can measure it through property. Great
Salt
way to
and
look at
pepper
it.
some kids in that, put some travel in that, some experiences and some grandchildren, and it's called the life.
That is the cycle. That's what I mean. It's a cycle. It's not a ladder. You're not going just up and down.
I love that. Hope you enjoyed today, this information, and if it helps you or a friend, forward it to them for sure.
Yeah, same for the data. Any suburbs you want us to cover, put us a message in the comments.
Let us know. In summary, average hold period for a unit, 11 years. Average hold period for a house, 13 to 14 years. That's across the majority of Sydney. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Love ya.